everybody? Isaac here, Civil Engineering Academy. Excited to be with you on another podcast episode. I have an awesome guest today. You're going to love her. Her name is Ayo Sokale. She is from the United Kingdom and talks about her journey into finding herself in the civil engineering. She became a chartered engineer and she is super motivated and super confident. We talk about the book that she's writing, help you become a more confident engineer. We also talk about her experience in working on some fun things on the side. That includes being a BBC presenter and doing a lot of work for them as well. She is a fascinating engineer. She has a huge personal brand. Definitely go follow her, check her out on the internet. She's all over the place. And I think you're just going to enjoy this episode. So without further ado, let's get to my interview with Ayo.
Hey, before we start diving into this awesome podcast episode with lots of nuggets of awesome wisdom that we're going to help you with, I want to take a moment to highlight our awesome partner, Civil Engineer Gear. As a civil engineer myself, this is hands down the go-to destination for sleek and professional looking day-to-day gear with a civil engineering flair. You can bet that it's mine for sure. So whether you're on the job site, the job office, you're burning the midnight oil studying for your exams, or you're just chilling at home on the weekends, which many of us do, there is civil engineering inspired products there that combine functionality and professionalism to be your companion, your best companion during those days you want to check out. I definitely love the comfortable t-shirts and sweatshirts. I'm wearing one right now. I don't start my day without a awesome drink. One of my favorite drinks in their awesome canteens. We also have awesome mugs, and don't even get me started on the spacious bags that they have there. They're big enough for all of my personal protective equipment, my PPE, shove it all in there, carry it with me. And it's not so big that you can't carry it around. It's actually a perfect fit. You can use it for your gym clothes. You can use it for your camping gear, yoga, whatever it is, you name it, throw it in the bag. Now, the best part of all this is that shipping is free on all orders. So if you are interested in getting some sweet civil engineering gear, check it out at civilengineergear.com and make sure to treat yourself with some awesome gear and accessories tailored specifically to your professional and personal life as a civil engineer. Go check it out. You won't be disappointed. All right. We are rocking and rolling. Ayo, thank you for joining me today on the Civil Engineering Academy podcast. I appreciate you jumping on and doing this.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited, Isaac. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Well, you're kind of a big name over there across the pond in the civil engineering world. So I wanted to connect with you and just kind of get a better understanding of how you juggle all these passions that you have. But maybe let's start with where are you originally from and how did you find yourself in civil engineering?
So my family, ethnicity-wise, is originally from Nigeria in Africa. I was born in Kent, though, but I did live in Nigeria for about 9 years. And that's where my passion for engineering was born, when I witnessed how civil engineering could transform the world around me, building core infrastructure that would make a big difference in people's lives and communities. And I thought, God, I want that power. I want that to be the first tool of the many tools I wanted to accumulate in my life to make a positive difference in the world. And that's how my passion for civil engineering was born.
So let's fast forward. How did you go to school? What school did you go to? Why did you go to that school? And was it a challenge? Was it hard for you?
So I already picked engineering about 7, 8/9. I think 7/8. And then I moved countries at 9, and I moved back to the United Kingdom, which is where my dad was working. And I went to a primary school there. And because of the cultural difference and the assumptions, they put me in bottom set, like the class for people they didn't think were very academically astute. But I already wanted to be an engineer, and you have to go into at least middle or top set going into secondary school to sit triple sciences before you can study the right subjects at A-level and then to go to university engineering. So I was like, So I remember at the age of 9 now in primary school in Eastbourne in Sussex, working extremely hard. And I had a pretty good maths teacher who gave me extra puzzles and stuff and was like, just knew I was good. But I was like, we need to do the things to prove to all these other people. So I did all the things, moved to top set, went to secondary school. And then by the time I was in year 9, that meant I could study triple science, which is critical to study engineering university. And then I got an partially academic scholarship to a private school, Morehouse Girls, where I went for TICL. So I guess that's, I don't know what college at US, I don't know how that relates actually. And then from there I went to university. But before then I was doing loads of work experience. So I tried out the plethora, there was a whole pantheon of engineering stuff. So I done courses at Imperial London College on my summer holidays where we did electrical, which I found out I do not like. We did all kinds of engineering. We did so many cool projects. And by the end of it, I was pretty solid. I wanted to do the big stuff, civil engineering. I was like, this is it. And I then did work experience at a structural engineering company, and they were great. They gave me loads of work experience, loads of good advice. But I kind of knew I wanted to work more in water, or at least I knew, like, subconsciously I did, because I'd experienced flooding when I was a child in Nigeria, and I knew that I wanted to do something useful and impactful in that space. So I looked at what the top universities were that studied water, and I looked at Delft in the Netherlands, but that was quite far away. And I looked at Plymouth, and then that's where I ended up going, Plymouth University, where I studied civil and coastal engineering. And I loved that uni because it's very practical. So like we did a lot of research, I had lots of labs, lots of practical. It used to be Polytechnic. I don't know what that relates to in terms of, like, I don't know, US academic levels, but it's basically it used to be a technical college that became a university. So because of that, it has that real industry hub. And I would actually find when I then graduated and work in industry that pretty much everyone in my field had gone to this uni because it was so practical for those who wanted to work in the field of water and coastal engineering and flood aviation or water resources, which is what I would go on to specialize in.
Wow.
So that's why I picked that university. And I did a placement year as well as part of a 5-year integrated master's degree. And during that, I worked for Howell Crowe, who then got bought over by CH2M Hill, who then got bought over by Jacobs, who are an American company, a massive consultancy agency. So I worked for them for a year, and that's where my dissertation was born. I was inspired by a project they were working on. So I worked in their ports team, and I did investigating the risk of azipod scouring in port walls, and that's retaining wall structure. And I really enjoyed it because I could apply the knowledge straight to the projects and take data from it and build my own models in an experimental space and test it and do like lots of experiments. And then that meant my dissertation got selected for an award, which is really cool.
Wow.
And it's really exciting. And then I graduated and I joined my current organization, which I've been at for 7.5 years now, the Environment Agency. So that is my academic journey to date.
That's the whole thing.
I know. I really went from primary school all the way up.
So that's great, though. So you're specializing in water resources, is what it sounds like. Many of our listeners may not know what a chartered civil engineer is, or like what that difference is between. In the United States, we have to pass these exams to become a professional engineer and get experience. What does it mean to be a chartered engineer?
I do think it's very dissimilar from your PE status, because I worked with a cool American engineer when I worked on the Team 200 project, and she was an American engineer and she's PE professional engineer. And I think that's the same as chartered engineer. It means that you're not academically qualified. It's more than that, because your engineering degree makes you academically qualified. But chartership, just like I assume professional engineers in the US, means that you are qualified within your professional institute. So you pass the bar, meaning that you've got enough skills, knowledge, experience, competence to do certain things. And you can talk about your professional career and your projects with your peers, other engineers who are professional, and hold your own and know the stuff and be tested on it, which means you can now, from that point, go and work on projects that you're competent to do and sign them off and do really cool things and kind of be a leader in your industry. But obviously, having that constant commitment to doing continuous professional development to keep that expertise up. So that's kind of what I see as that. And then the process for us in the UK means you do a training agreement usually, and there's some organizations that have their approved training agreements, and then that's one way of doing it anyway. And then on the training agreement, you gain experience from working on various projects. Maybe for my career, I worked in a team where we were delivering projects. So we were kind of project managing construction projects that would protect people's homes from flooding and their communities from flooding. So that would be then everything from identifying a need that this community is at risk of flooding to delivering it on site and handing it over to the client saying, this is your asset, or even maintaining it or giving them guidance on how they maintain their asset going forward. And that also looked like parts of my career where I designed projects, where I designed fish pass channels or, wooden footbridges and things like that. So also doing the design. So you'd have to gain a plethora of skills at the time across 9 attributes So that would be, technical knowledge, application of technical knowledge, management and leadership, communication, health and safety, sustainability, and professional commitment. Doing those things across those 9 attributes and signing all of them off to the highest level, which at the time is AC. Then you would then have a conversation with your delegated engineer, who's the person who works very closely with you in your career. And then they would then go to your supervising civil engineer, who's the person who does your annual appraisals on your professional development in that part of your career. And once they've signed you off, you can then apply to do your exam, which is then you have to write like a report on your projects. It's like 5,000 words. You have to write all the appendix of calculations and evidence of things you've done. You have to submit your CPD records. I think the minimum was 30 hours and 15 hours of that was health and safety, I think. But I think I did 1,000 hours each year. So I don't know what the actual minimum was. I wasn't aiming for the minimum. And then after that, once you've done all of that, submitted that, and they said, fine, you get a date. And on that date, you sit a written exercise I think you get 2 hours. They give you 2 questions, you pick one and you write an essay on it. And then you have an interview with 2 professional engineers and they'll question you on your career. They might go into the details of a technical thing you worked on to ensure that, first of all, that report is yours, that this experience is yours and you know what you're talking about and you are confident. And it's an important process because then at the end of that, you come across with those letters behind your name, CEng, MIC, which means you're a chartered engineer, a member of the Institution of Civil Engineers, which is great.
It does sound very similar, maybe slightly different in how its approach is, but kind of similar with, documenting your experience and everything else that you have to do there. So thanks for explaining that to us.
A very detailed explanation, but now you know.
Yeah. So this world of civil engineering is pretty male dominated. How do you feel like you've been able to navigate all of that? And have you had any challenges? What advice would you give to other young women that are going to join this field? Anything along those lines that you've experienced?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I went to university, I think the stats at the time were like 10% of engineers were women. I was like, oh, I think there was only 10 of us on my course as well. I'm trying to think back. I think it was 120 on course, 10 of us women, I think. Trying to recollect now. But to be fair, I think it does bring some challenges. I remember blogging about this at the time. I remember actually writing a really annoyed Facebook status when I was a student. We were working on a group project and I went to ask our lecturer at the time for advice on it and they just ignored me and they talked to the guys in my group because they assumed they'd done the technical work and I'd been doing the admin stuff. But and it happened time and time again. We work on group projects and they'd almost delegate the girl for the admin or the writing. And I was like, no, because I need to gain the technical skills. Otherwise, I will end up being a self-fulfilling prophecy that you assume that I can only do admin things rather than be an engineer, which is what I've chosen to be. So that was annoying because I actually remember, like, when you're a teenager at university, Facebooking about it, being a bit annoyed. I was not happy about that. But I realized actually over that journey that it's other people's perceptions of you, not your own. So as I grew up, I became more mature in my career, more confident. I realized, first of all, I'm in charge of being as competent as I want to be. So I work really hard to be competent in the area that I work in. And as a result of that competence, I'm very confident in my skill. So if anyone questions me, I know what I know. I know a lot about what I do. And I probably do more CPD than you. And sit down, let's have a conversation. And I will still you through it. So that confidence made it much easier to navigate when people would have conversations like that. Because I remember as a graduate, when I was an undergraduate, I didn't say a thing. I really didn't. And now there's not a moment, like a scenario like that would happen, I wouldn't say anything for a number of reasons. Because one, things don't get better unless you speak up and someone has to do it. And obviously that means you take the burden of responsibility and you've got to ask yourself if you've got the resilience to do that. If you do, then do. So that those who come after you have a better experience. Number two, I never do anything that diminishes my way of viewing myself. So if I allow you to go ahead and speak to me in that way and diminish me, think I'm not good enough because I'm a woman in STEM or whatever, then I'm invalidating that. I'm agreeing with that subconsciously. It's like laughing to a joke that you don't find funny. Someone's being disrespectful. You're harming a part of your sense of self. And I don't do that. And I think that definitely helps. I think, if you're a woman in STEM and you're navigating it, you're finding it hard, don't laugh if it's not funny. Stand up for yourself. And if anyone tells you not to, consider why they would want you not to. I remember getting some advice at the time, keep your head down. And I write about it in my upcoming, the minority mindset the need to keep your head below the parapet. But it only gets you so far, because it only gets you so far. We can see that, people have negative perceptions. You can't outwork discrimination. You just can't. You can be the best and someone can tell you means nothing because they don't value who you are. So I think you've got to get rid of that. But you've also got to realize that it's strategy and it's time. There's a time for everything. There's just a time for everything. There'll be a season of your career where you just don't have enough status or enough competence or enough anything. And maybe that's where you can use your network or join other women in STEM to be allies and just support you and to give you that resilience and community if you find that easy to do, or you gain community from that, because some people don't. But if that serves you and that adds you and that enhancing to you, then do that. That can help you in that phase when it's challenging and you just don't have enough power and authority to speak up for yourself. Maybe other people can help with that. And strategy, getting to the point where you have loads of power, work really hard, but also work really smart. How do you get the right experience? How do you focus on the bread and butter of being an engineer? Make sure you know your stuff. How do you make sure that you line yourself up for the right projects so you can keep accelerating your career? Because at the end of the day, when you're at the top of the hierarchy and you're the very best, you can speak up a bit more. You can go on TV and be a TV interview and drop name an organization that messed up. You can do that. And that's where you get to do that. And of course, some people get to that point and they don't do that because they still feel like they don't have enough power. And believe me, we always have power. And that's a thing. We always have power. We always have autonomy in how we do things. Maybe the consequences of the actions are hard, but if you remind yourself that you are completely powerful all the time, even if the consequences are great, it makes a whole different scenario. I'm just choosing not to do this because I don't want those consequences, and I'm playing a strategy. But in 5 years' time, maybe I'm going to be a chartered engineer, and maybe I'm going to be leading that project, and I'm going to lead it with a different culture so that all women, men or women, anyone, whatever their protected characteristic, whatever their difference, whatever makes them feel less than included in the space, that is not experience they're going to have. So you get to then do things differently. That's a very long answer, but I think it's
great advice.
Complex topic.
Great advice.
When people are trite about things and superficial, I think it's a real thing and it needs to be explored in that level of depth.
Yeah. You mentioned this book you're writing. Tell me a little more about that.
So I think I've been writing this book all my life. I remember talking to my book agent about it when in the very early days. I was like, I've been writing this book all my life. I had like 48 chapters on my laptop because I'm a journaler, and then I write and I research and I write. If I have a thought, I want to understand, if I have had that thought, what's the vocabulary that defines that feeling? Because often, we experience things and then we find out there's a word for it, or there's a school of thought around it, and you're not the first one. So that was always interesting to me. So I was always writing because it's a way of learning and exploring your own mind and reflecting. As an engineer, we write quarterly reports in the UK to understand the experience we've gained in that quarter. But one thing I did as an engineer at the very start of my career is I did a weekly catch-ups with myself where I reflected on what I learned, what could I do better the next week. And that was basically became a holistic thing, not just engineering, like how could I develop as a person? And that became the background of my book. And then now the book is packaged as titled as Othered: How to Thrive in Spaces Not Created for You. And I think that's some of my reflections being, a black woman in STEM in the UK, or being the first black girl at my school, or, being the youngest deputy mayor of a town, like things that often they're just, people are not expecting me to be that. And therefore I have not always pleasant experiences, but through that, I really learned an awful lot. So I was digging into where do you want to be authentic? Where do you want to master who you are? How do you want to be strategic? How do you want to be true to yourself? How do you have that sense of peace that you're making a decision and it's intentional, so that you feel, okay, I'm doing this. It's not always what I want to do, but this is an intentional strategy to get to X, Y, Z. Or I'm going to reflect on this in this point, things like that. So I wrote a book that could empower anyone who feels othered in any space. Here are 6 paradigms that I've researched and I've experienced, and I've coached other people around, or I've mentored other young engineers around, or other people around in different phases of life around. And these paradigms have 2 extreme ideas, but find the way across that spectrum of an idea that works to you. And it will be different in different phases. There's a part of my career where I was never authentic. I wore black to work all the time. I was very quiet. In fact, the very first few months of joining my organization, I didn't say a word. I was so conscientious. I overworked. I didn't even book the hours I worked. I worked 7 days a week, and they didn't know I was working 7 days a week. So I could just outperform everyone. So I could pick up projects, and people would just be like, she's a superstar. I was like, but I wasn't working 7 days a week. I didn't know about it. I was not being myself. I wore only black or blue. I worked on placement year before. and people laughed at the fact that I did pageants and I was very girly. So I changed it. I wasn't girly at all. I basically masked. I pretended for like pretty much a whole year. But then as I grew through my career and I got more and more of who I am, I was like, now I can do that. I go to events wearing a bright pink dress, and there's one picture of me like judging an engineering award, and I'm just wearing a pink dress. And it's my version of I bite my thumb at you, flicking my thumb at you in society. I'm myself now, my choice. But, that phase, I probably wouldn't have got the same experience if I did show up and didn't learn the lesson from my placement year. But when I proved myself and everyone knew what I was about, I could then do it. But now there are more senior leaders like me who do that all the time. And now it's normal. The new graduates coming in and they wear pink and yellow or whatever. And it's not a thing because we broke ground, but we had to play strategy first to get here and then to do that. So I explore the nuances of things like that in my book, because it's not about telling people what to do. It's about, this is an idea. It's a spectrum of an idea. I don't think black and white thinking or yes or no or good or bad is actually the way forward. This is how things work in the reality we live in. These other systems we live in. Some of them may work for you. Some of them may not work for you. How do you thrive and get to where you want to be? Regardless. How do you win your game?
That sounds like a fantastic book. So when is that coming out? Is it out? It's not out yet.
It's
right?
not out. Most likely 2025, end of 2025. That's what my book agent said. I just want to speak about it. I'm very excited because I think it's going to change the game for so many people. It's a labor of love. I've been writing it for years. So I also want to see people read it and love it. But to be fair, we love it so much that I also don't mind if no one loves it. I just want it to resonate with that one person like me who was at that stage of their career, who did have, we can talk about how great the success is, but there's some really dark times when I was a graduate and I really struggled. I never talk about that. I was bullied sometimes. I didn't enjoy, some people spoke really badly to me. I didn't speak up for myself. And that takes a toll on your well-being.
Mm-hmm.
I also learned that you don't talk about that. So, which you don't talk about that at that stage. But now I've gone through that experience. I want everyone to be empowered to just have the best life possible and not to compromise anything that's a non-negotiable for them to get to where they want to be. Like, it shouldn't cost you your soul and your peace of mind to be an engineer or whatever it is that your soul aspires to be.
So, you kind of touched on a topic there. If there is a woman that finds themselves in a dark spot, something happened, I don't know. You're exuding, I can tell you have a ton of confidence, but what advice would you give to someone that maybe find themselves in that same scenario? How can they pull themselves out? How do they make things a little brighter for them?
Genuinely, I think it's a process that we go on through life. I think I was born really confident, but I think life can take a beating to you and you can lose that and you have to go and revisit that. So one of the key things I say when I meet, because I talk to young women in engineering a lot, and, someone like, oh, I'm really worried about this, or I'm on a construction site and no one respects me. And, I just feel, in fact, that was one of the conversations I had and probably a couple of weeks ago, like last conversation I had before Christmas with an engineer. They're like, no one respects me on site. I'm really worried. And the key thing I say is, first of all, know your stuff. Make sure you know your stuff and you focus on the bread and butter. And also you look after yourself and you decouple your value from other people's perceptions of you. And I say that as a statement, but I know that there's more to it than that because it's a big thing. Because especially as women, we're socialized slightly differently. And I think that plays a part. We have people pleasing built into our socialization, and therefore we really care about people's perception of us. But I work with people through coaching conversations to help them decouple their sense of self and worth from even productivity, from even how successful they are, and from even how other people view them. So they have a sense of self that's unshakable, regardless of where they are or whatever room. So I like how I am now is pretty much I can be myself anywhere because I've worked hard. Yeah. What I like to coach people to get to, and sometimes it's going down to exercises like, what are your values? What do you want out of life? What is like a anti-goal? What is something that you would never do to get to what you want to be? So for example, I work 7 days a week for years. Some people would never do that. And I want you to know that. So you don't do something that's not worth it. And you have ROI on the investment you put into your career, your life, that makes sense to you. And you don't end up with, I never say this word right, Pyrrhic wins, where you win, but it costs you so much that the win feels silly.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
I had loads of wins, I'm sure people, but also lots of losses that maybe I don't talk about because no one talks about things that don't win, right? But on reflection, I know I've also had lots of Pyrrhic wins that have cost so much, of the ROI of winning them is like, ugh. And I coach people so they don't do that. So they balance their health with their career, they balance their health with their family life. So especially for women who maybe want family and they want to be engineers and they want to work on the construction site, maybe that's what they like the most. I know so many women who love the site part of their work more, but they always think they can't do the hours with the family. And we talk about it and we coach through it and we figure out what are real barriers and what are barriers that are made because of other people or the way they've done it before. And how can you do everything completely differently? Like write your book and build a whole life that works for you. And that's what I like to do. Like in my book, in my coaching conversations, and in all the content I put out, to be uplifting, to be empowering, and to just help everyone navigate building a life that truly works for them. If you're a woman in engineering, if you're a man in engineering, even if you're not an engineer, like how do you build a life that truly works for you? And that truly, like, you know that you are living the life you're meant to live. So I think that also. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, everything you've put out, yes, is super positive. I love watching it. I think it's great stuff. I'm curious, you've kind of built this personal brand about you, not only as a civil engineer, but a speaker, and you do BBC snippets and acting. You're doing a bunch of stuff.
Yes.
One of my questions is, how do you balance that? But then how do other civil engineers venture maybe outside of the bubble of being a civil engineer and actually want to explore some of these creative sides that maybe they wanted to do, like you've done, almost outside of civil engineering?
I think lots of engineers already do that. I know engineers who are in bands or who like are really great artists. I think we're all three-dimensional people, but I think the one challenge that's happened in our society at times is we become two-dimensional, because maybe that's how we found it easy to be branded. I remember when I first worked with a PR company and they were like, you do so many things. What are you? How do we sell you across in a way that's simple? I was like, I'm me. And I think maybe it's that, we have shorter attention spans. We live in a very media-oriented society, and we've all thought about ourselves as brands. So we made ourselves two-dimensional over time. But I've always said I've never met a boring person, just a person who isn't sharing the thing that's most interesting about them. They don't trust me, or they don't trust it's safe to be who they are. And therefore, I don't think it's about how engineers go out and do these creative things. I think a lot of people already are. We are so three-dimensional. Like people, even if it's like they've got a fantastic hobby where they read manga, or they love anime, or they like crochet. I knew lots of engineers who love to crochet. Like that's already more three-dimensional than you would think. I think we're all three-dimensional. We have families where children to someone, we're parents of people, maybe we're sisters, we're siblings, we're community leaders, we volunteer, maybe we like running, maybe we go to the gym, maybe we're a powerlifter. There's so much to people. I think maybe just look on LinkedIn, and because we're so current, like I just got this promotion or whatever, which is like generic, but actually people are so much more than that, and they already are.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because even at my own workplace, sometimes you scan obituaries. We scanned an obituary. There was a guy that had passed away that had worked for the company for a long, long time, right? And in that obituary, they describe all the things that he was doing outside of work. And it made you feel like, I didn't even know this guy. All I knew is that he worked on substations or whatever it was. But I think you're spot on that people are three-dimensional, and they have a life outside of engineering with a lot of hobbies. So
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I love engineering. It's what I've wanted to do since I was a child. But to a lot of people, it's not a career; it's a job. And there's two different things in life. There's careers, like the things that I think are drama or your life purpose, and like a vocation that you love and it's a part of your identity. And there's a job that you do to get paid so you can look after your family and live in a capitalist society so you can live okay. And those are two different things. Not everyone's got a career. Not everyone has a love of it. They just do their job and they go home. They do so many cool things, and they're really cool people. But and that's one of the things about promoting STEM. Sometimes you're like, it's not for everyone, and it shouldn't be. I think everyone should go about life and do what they want to do. It just happens to be that this was the first tool I ever wanted, but it might not be the tool for you. And that's also really cool.
Yeah. Well, could you tell our audience, many here may not know you, but how did you end up working for the BBC? How did you start doing stuff for them?
So I think for me, I have like lots of things I like to do. Lots of little hobbies, but some of my hobbies, they need a big platform to do. I like to communicate, and I like to be I like to perform. and I like to share ideas, and I've always wanted to do BBC stuff. I wrote to Blue Peter when I was a teenager. I was like, how do I become a Blue Peter presenter? That was the goal. Blue Peter presenter. I was like, that's what I want. I saw them. I was like, that's it. And I wrote to them, and they wrote back to me, actually. It was very good. Thank you very much, BBC. And they're like, well, they gave me examples of all their various presenters. They're like, our presenters have a varied range of hobbies. They have lots of different professional backgrounds, but they've reached a zenith in something. They're really accepted in something. And we like people who are adventurous because we do lots of, challenges. And they're like open-minded, and they've got resilience, and they just, something along those lines. I still have the letter on my laptop. I've got a printed version up in my box of memories. But something along those lines. And I basically took their advice to heart, and I started galvanizing, becoming the kind of person like that. And to be fair, it's something I've always liked doing, setting a goal and finding the distance between me and the goal I have, and envisaging what the person that has the outcome I want is and what I'm not, and then figuring it out. And that's basically what I did. I was like, okay, I want to be a BBC presenter. I speak really, really fast, and I'm excited. Really fast. Okay, that's not gonna cut the mustard. So maybe I need a way of improving that. So I then did debate club. I was like, okay, I can work on my speech. Great. Oh, I speak really fast when I feel stressed and people aren't hearing me. Maybe I can have a rule. I'm in a room and people don't value me. I just don't go in that room. I don't speak in that room. Good. Now I value myself. Now I'm working on my speech. Do things. Great. Now I need to have lots of hobbies, but hobbies that I'm very good at, and things that are, a little bit out there and a bit extraordinary. So how do I become a really extraordinary person? Okay, I'll start picking up hobbies and see what I like. And the thing I like, I'll run with it. And I found out that thing I like and thing that bothers me the most is seeing things that are wrong in my society. And I would call myself, people say, oh, you're a really nice person. I don't really like the word nice. It's because it causes me emotional distress. I remember the first time I moved to my uni town, and I was going from my church at the time, because I used to be really religious. I was going back to my uni halls, and I had the X amount of money in my pocket. And I met X amount of homeless people on the way home. And by the time I got back to my uni halls, before I even got there, I'd run out of money in my pocket, and there was still more homeless people, right? So then I started working with homeless people. So it was not really about, it was more like, okay, I've got a heart for something bothers me, so how do I do something about it? And that's why I realized, oh, that is my thing. I see problems, I like solving them. I really am an engineer. And I'm not just an engineer in engineering, I'm an engineer, maybe a social engineer. I'm a person who wants to solve all kinds of problems, but I might need more skills. So I've always been looking at the skills I need to do the thing. And then along the way, I, did pageants, I did social enterprises, I did loads of charity work. I worked with Down Children's Cancer Service. And I did loads of things to make a difference. And along the way, I was building loads of hobbies, I've built loads of skills, loads of expertise, all the things that BBC said they wanted in a Blue Peter presenter. And then I would leave university and start working. And I'd tried those things, radio, show reels, but I hadn't broken into TV yet. But then I got the opportunity to present something for my professional institution on Joseph Bazalgette. And that got me even more galvanized. I was like, I'm so good at this. I was born to do this. Oh, I can't give up on this dream. I've done all the stuff BBC said, but the key thing is now I'm going to have to reach out to people and really break into this network, right? So I go on LinkedIn, I'm stalking people. That's why I always have mad respect for when people message me on LinkedIn, because I did the same. I researched people, and I wrote to Melissa Hugenberg. That's how you say her name. And she's cool. She's like BBC commissioner. And I sold her my ideas, and we booked a meeting virtually, and she commissioned me to do the Truth About Food series. And that's how I first did my BBC Real bit. And then other people saw it, because I was really jolly good. If I say so myself. But I've been practicing for a while, doing YouTube videos, videoing myself at home. I've been working for this maybe 10 years at this time. And then I got to do BBC Bite Size, because they saw my previous bit. And then my BBC Bite Size work was seen by Get Set Galactic's producer. And they messaged me on Twitter. And they're like, oh, we saw that. You're really good. Would you be interested in this? And then I was like, and then that's how I then auditioned for it. I did all the pre-work on it, where I was there at the very start before the show was fully commissioned. We did the and then it was like a 3-year journey before it came on TV. So this whole journey to doing BBC TV is like, it's so hard to actually say in a succinct way, because it's lots of things. I tried lots of things that didn't work, and therefore it's easy to always brush them over, but I learned things from them. And the key things are like they wanted people who had personality, had lots of things they'd done before. And I just tried lots of different things. I tried it, tested it, and figured out what I liked. And I do all the time now. Every quarter, I pick up a new hobby. If I like it, I keep it up. If I don't, I don't. And
Are you doing it full time?
BBC.
Yeah. Or is it?
I work full time at the Environment Agency, and then I do all my BBC filming on my annual leave. So, like last year, I filmed a whole season of the show in about, a month, and I took just used my annual leave, which meant I could have 5 days off for non-work things, for non-BBC things. But then I end up filming other projects and doing keynotes in that time. So the challenge is always, I work full time, do BBC stuff, I do keynotes, I write books, I coach, and I run a tech company now, and I all do that all the time simultaneously.
Wow. Yeah, you are busy.
7 days a week. What's a weekend?
That's good. Well, Ayo, this has been inspiring. It's been definitely eye-opening, and I'm hoping that people that listen to this, are inspired to take your advice and implement it into their own life, so that they can, I don't know, find hobbies, stay busy, but also feel inspired and in the engineering world that they find themselves in. So I want to thank you for jumping onto our show to share your thoughts. Is there any last piece of inspiration you would share? And how do people connect with you if they wanted to reach out to you?
Our last inspiration will be find something that matters to you and live on a purpose. Live on that purpose and just do things that inspire you every day. And try and think about how you can be better today than you were yesterday. And if you live in that action, just by micro actions every second, what's the best thing I can do now? What's the best thing I can do now? You just have no idea where you're going to end up. It's incredible and quite scary. You have no idea. You can do incredible things if you try. And if you want to find me, I am everywhere on the internet. So I'm on Instagram. I'm trying to build my Instagram, so go to Instagram, official Ayo Sokale. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, my professional chatting. It's my name, Ayo Sokale. And you can follow my website where I write blogs and stuff, so you can read all the deep thoughts of my mind. I'm also on Facebook and all the social medias, basically, just my name. So find me on there.
Okay. We'll link all that, all the show notes in our notes, and as we blast this out to the internet. So thank you again for jumping on and sharing your wisdom with us.
It's been great. Thank you so much, Isaac.
All right. See ya.
Bye.